Reach out, touch the fear. It is always there. Put on this coat of black. There ain't no going back. In the tower, you can bring your pain.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Black Tower Podcast, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Daniel.
And I am Andrew.
And today we are going to be talking about the book review, or our book review, I should say, of The Knife of Dreams.
I mean, we've been going for a year. We can start kind of calling it the book review, I guess.
Yeah,
It's not the only one, but it's the one you guys are listening to right now, so that makes it the book review.
It's not the only book review, but it's my book review. There are other book reviews, but this one is mine.
So, to give everybody spoilers, or spoiler warnings, not spoilers, to do the opposite of give people spoilers, for those of you that may be able to tell by the title of the episode, this episode will contain spoilers up through and through the end of Book 11 of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time series, Knife of Dreams. For those of you that have not read books 1 through 11, or rereading books 1 through 11 and want to be pleasantly surprised again, you're at risk of being spoiled. So stop listening now, put a bookmark, come back after you finish Knife of Dreams. It'll be here waiting for
Indeed.
you. I promise. No, unless someone blows up the internet, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that is always a possibility. Not a big one, but always a possibility.
All things are possible.
First of all, through God, all things are possible. So write that one down.
Yeah. There's a Bible quote for this episode.
Oh God,
Bible study in the Black Tower.
that is one of my the only episodes of It's Always Sunny that I actually enjoy.
Oh yeah.
Where he goes to therapy.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen that one.
Oh man, it's okay. To be fair, the rest of the episode isn't even that good, but there are like 2 or 3 scenes in it that are super fun.
I could see that.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but
Anywho.
yes, today we are going to be talking about Knife of Dreams, where people get knifed in their dreams. That doesn't actually happen,
but it could.
But it could. Again, always a possibility. Be wary of your knives and your dreams.
Sounds like a warning for like what's the famous horror guy? Where if you dream of him, he comes back to life.
Freddy? No. Jason?
I thought Jason. Yeah, JC. I thought Jason just killed the campers at Crystal Lake.
Well, and then he like dies and then comes back to life like 450 times.
Oh wait, no, it is Freddy because I got that whole nursery rhyme 1, 2. Freddy's coming for you.
Yeah, no, it is. You're right.
Yeah, it is Freddy Krueger.
You're right. Frody Krueger.
Yeah. And while there may not necessarily be a person who looks like Freddy Krueger in this book, there is a certain individual who wants it with an appendage that probably looks something similar to Freddy Krueger.
Wow.
Ooh.
He went there.
He went there. It burns.
Oh, man. My brother is not going to be happy with you.
At least he only lost one of his foreheads. Well,
okay.
technically,
He'll get a new one
2
later.
of his 6, I guess.
He'll get a new one later.
So, Knife of Dreams, as we said, it is the 11th book in the Wheel of Time series. It was published by Tor Books in the United States and Orbit in the United Kingdom. It was released on October 11th, 2005 at 859 pages long.
Damn.
So that's a pretty decent book.
Yeah.
This is still yet another one where, again, Rand does not dominate the point of view.
Correct.
However, with a whopping 19.89% of the dialogue or the chapters or point of view, however you want to look at it in the book, Matt is your main orator for this series, for this book.
Indeed.
Followed closely by Elaine at 15.3, Perrin at 10.3, and Rand coming in close on Perrin's heels at 10.2. So still dominated
Indeed.
by very, very familiar characters, as you would expect from any series written anywhere about anything.
Correct.
Which isn't a bad thing. I mean, that's kind of how
No,
they are the
no.
main characters. Egwene quiets down a lot, down at 7%, followed by Fael at 5.4. Suwon gets about 2.4. Brigitte gets another 2.4. Let's see. Galad gets 1.7.
Mm-hmm.
Tuon gets 1.5. Loyal gets 1.4, basically. Elida gets 1.3. Arangar gets pretty much chapter 3 at 1%, basically, just over 1%. And our favorite from last week, Nynaeve, only gets 0.47%, which is only 15% of chapter 20.
Come on, Nynaeve. What are you doing?
You know, she's done so much from the last ones that she took a break. Oh, and our boy Rodel Itorade gets almost a full 1% of the
Damn
Yep.
straight.
So he gets 8% of the prologue, which
And I mean,
is
let's
called
be
what?
honest.
Embers
It
falling
is
on dragon.
kind of important for him to have that.
Oh yeah, it was a wee bit important.
A wee bit.
Oh, but there's a whole host of other lesser known characters. I mean, Suroth is in there too at 2.07%. Some in the prologue and some in the epilogue. So she's at the beginning and then shuts up and then comes back at the end. So just when you think she's
Yeah.
gone, bam, she's right back in your face.
Every time you think she's out, they pull her right back in.
But the exciting part for me, there's a lot of excitement that happens in Knife of Dream.
Mm-hmm.
For me, Knife of Dreams is where the plot really lets up.
Correct.
And I think
Yes,
probably the same
Winter's
for most
Heart
people.
and Crossroads of Twilight are definitely the most plotty. Before that, the anything after Do Might Wells feels a little plotty.
Yeah, that's true.
But once you actually hit Knife of Dreams, it's where Robert Jordan seemed to just like take what he was thinking and go, all right, it's time to kick this into overdrive. I don't know why I waited this long.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like we were talking about. There was the thought. I believe it was whenever Robert Jordan was writing the series, he had all intentions of making it a 12-book series.
Yes.
And so Lord of Chaos would have put us about halfway through, meaning when we picked up with the Crown of Swords, it would make sense for us to go from a very high climax of action back down into a little bit more, okay, we've dealt with a big portion of the world, some major events. This huge thing just happened. You had the debut of male channelers. Now everybody knows that they're around and in force. Oh, and you really don't want to fuck with them.
True.
So you got all that to soak in. Rand's back, and it's almost like Rand has to be quasi reintroduced because of the changes he
Yeah, in
goes
some
through.
ways.
Yeah. So I feel like though that transition was very well done. And it goes back into a lot
No.
of the building like we had with the first, 2.5-ish books, arguably, from the series. It just
True.
seems like it takes so much longer because those of us that have finished the series or had the rest of the series spoiled, we know what's coming. Like the plot felt
True.
long, but it didn't feel as long as it does now during my first read. But doing my second read, the plot is fucking forever.
Forever.
And now we're ramping back up pretty decently in Knife of Dreams. Is a pretty good ramp up.
No, it's true. And the other thing that's interesting to me is that again, it almost feels like because as we have talked about before, the plot is foundation,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of what makes it feel that way. Is is that there's not a huge amount of action. There's not like crazy things that are happening necessarily. I mean, there are definitely there moments. There are definitely times when you kind of are like, oh shit, that just happened. But overall, it's definitely like foundational stuff. It's putting you back into the world, making sure that you remember that there's so much more going on than just Rand, and so much more going on in everybody's lives than just like what you're seeing on a page to page basis. And again, like very akin to the uh glass columns, you want that foundation to have those payoffs later, because if you don't get the glass columns, then the payoff when you hit the later on in the book when Rand reveals everything to the Aiel, or later on when you are having people run away from their clans and whatnot, just doesn't feel nearly as meaningful until you see it. And so going ahead and like having those foundational things, and the fact that he really took time to make sure that we all understood what was going on in his world, is definitely the right call. It's just reading through those that you're like, oh man, that action though. So anyway.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, like you were saying, you come to appreciate all of that because things start linking up together, things start making more sense because you do have that oh so crucial background building, and he lays down the framework for the entirety of the rest of the series in the plot, and everything
Yep.
just builds off of that. So it might be a slow foundation. You got to remember, it takes a little while for cement to dry and set.
Correct. But once it
It
has,
ain't going nowhere.
But where you going?
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
So let's talk a little bit about the published cover of the series, not of the series, of Knife of Dreams. I keep wanting to say series for some reason.
Eh.
So what's going on here, Daniel? What's this scene?
According to what I know, that is that right there is Tom and not Gaul. Gaul is wrong.
Is it Ruark?
Ruark. And I think I don't actually really know. Like, I've always been a little bit unsure of this cover. I know that there are characters that I know there. Like, as I said, you have Tom and Ruark, or that might not even be Tom. Like, see,
I don't think it's Tom.
I don't think it's Tom. The
Hold on 1 second.
mustaches make it feel like it should be Tom.
I'm about to figure it out because, not gonna lie, the reason I was like, so what's going on here is because I was unsure about it.
Yeah.
So this is in.
I know that it's big, smart military.
Yeah, it's
people.
in Perrin's tent when they're camped near Malden. And in the prologue, Galena is captured by Gaul and Nield, and she's taken to Perrin's tent in his camp. So that the female should be Galena.
Galena.
So, and we can see when you see the full cover, not just the front, what would be the front page kind of cover. You can see there's an Ashaman standing at the corner of the tent with a guard outside as well.
Correct. So I guess that would be Perrin and Gaul.
Yeah.
So I guess that probably is Gaul.
Yeah, it is Gaul. You're right.
And then that would be, I guess that would be, my guess is that is the captain of the people who were with. I keep on wanting to say no.
It's Gerard Arganda.
There we go. Yes, Arganda.
Yeah. The Ashaman standing at the entrance is Jura Grady.
There we go. That makes sense.
And then you have, just a miscellaneous guard. But it is Grady, Arganda, Gaul, Perrin, and Galena inside Perrin's tent when he's camped near Malden.
Which means that probably what's happening here in this on the cover is actually them planning the rescue of Fail.
I
That's what I would
I
imagine.
think so. Once we
'Cause
get further,
definitely would make sense given that there's all of those people.
yeah. Yeah, because this is during, and we'll get into this more, but there's the quote unquote brotherless IL that helped Fael and her
Correct.
friends escape.
Yes.
Which she actually does not tell Karen about.
Correct.
But so I think it's
and for kind of good
yeah.
reason.
I mean, and it is a good scene to use as the cover art. But what I really like is the cover art for the ebook, which is a very high def depiction of Rand shielding men from Simridge's fireball.
Yes. Indeed. No, that one I don't like as you said, I don't dislike the one that they used for the published hard or like physical copybook.
Mhm.
But I do like the one that they used for the ebook better.
Oh yeah. Well, to me, like after you read the book, what sticks out to you more? Rand losing his hand or Fael being rescued? For me, it's Rand losing his fucking hand.
Yep.
So, I mean, don't be wrong. Like, I'm happy to see that whole arc with Fael being captured and all this other crap done and finally finished, so that we can move on to
Correct.
bigger and better things. But it's not
But
quite the iconic image that I think of when I think of Knife of Dreams.
correct.
I think of
No,
Rand looking
I
at a
totally
stump and
agree.
going, "Fuck."
Yep. Which is what everybody would do when they look at a
Yeah,
stump.
yeah. Tree stump, stump of an arm. Just name your stump. The stump
Yep.
that Loyal has to deal with. You've been called to the stump. Fuck.
Accurate. Accurate as hell.
So, why don't we start with Matt's doings in the book?
No problem. So Matt is basically running around trying to get out of Shan Chan territory still. That is still like the focus of his part of this book. They do finally end up making it, and there's a very special, awesome, lovely it's not quite at the end. It's like near the end-ish of the book. But they finally do get out of Shan Chan territory. There are a number of battles that happen, which is just it's I don't know. Like they were doing so well at being sneaky and just getting out without having to fight that it was a little sad when it was like, oh well, this isn't an espionage thing anymore. They're actually just going to fight their way out in a lot of ways. But yeah, everybody ends up making it out of Shan Chan territory. They do make it to Altara, which is technically free. Obviously, they're dealing with the fact that the Shan Chan are on their doorstep. But they do make it out of the place that they were trying to get out of. And in this book, like a lot of what Matt does is foundational as well. They reveal the letter that Tom has got from Moraine. Say Matt agrees to go save her, but they don't actually do that in this book, right?
Yeah, they don't do it in this book. They just kind of like,
Yeah,
okay, we
it's
thought she was dead, but based on the letter, she's probably actually not. And here's where she's stuck. And Matt's like,
yeah,
fuck.
yes. And in fact, again, like they don't actually really do anything, but they do finally meet up with Talmanis again, who's been absent for book and a half, 2 books. Because Talmanis and the Band of the Red Hand were with Egwene. And then they stop traveling with Egwene and they go ahead and post up in in the nation where Saladar is, which I'm totally blanking on right now.
Mirandy?
Because the Mirandy, there we go. And then and the basically like one of the big nobles in Mirandy wanted to go ahead and be king of Mirandy, so they sort of posted up with him for a little while to sort of it was interesting because he gave them a reason and they knew it was bullshit, and so they ended up staying knowing that he was bullshitting them and that he was probably going to use them as like enemies to make the nation come together under him. But they also again were like, well, but we know that, so we can avoid it. And so they do, and they come south instead and meet up with Matt. And finally we get Talmanas and Matt back together, which is great. I love them together. They're a really fun pair.
Yeah.
And a lot of this book is, or a lot of Matt's section of this book, I should say, is focused on him actually being successful in some ways at wooing Tuon.
Yep.
Because he knows that they were getting married the whole time.
Oh yeah.
He knew that she was wife.
The
And she also kind of seems to know that from the beginning.
Yep.
Like, she's really good at reading signs and doing things like that. And so she goes with them and allows herself to be kidnapped and whatnot when they leave Abu Dar, sort of because she believes him.
Oh yeah. And it's kind of like the interaction they have is interesting because Matt has always been that guy that he has a fun time, it's convenient. He's never really loved anybody he's been with. And now he finds himself basically falling in love, if not almost being in love with Tuon. And all he gets from
Correct.
Tuon is, this is a marriage out of pure convenience. Like, it's because we're allies and it protects the Shan and your people. Like, that's why we're married, is what she claimed.
Sort of. Yeah, I mean, and you know that, especially again, 2 books ago, I want to say, in Winter's Heart, when they're, is it actually 2 books or is it 3 books? Holy crap.
I can't remember.
When she first meets Matt, she immediately seems to have some kind of strange attraction to him. Because she does offer to Tylan to buy him. And she ends up like following him around the Terrasen Palace.
Well, I think it's because she gets the prophecy or the omen from the Shan about the raven. And she sees the Ashandre that has ravens inscribed.
And she also sees his ring, which it doesn't explicitly say that she has a prophecy about that. She definitely, like, it talks about the one about the raven. It does not specifically talk about the one about the fox until later. I think it actually does mention it later. But we don't see it until later. But she also makes a big deal about his ring. And so, I mean, like, Matt is supposed to be, like, particularly attractive and, you know, very witty and very nice and all of this, you know, very desirable kind of traits in someone that you would be in a relationship with.
I mean, imagine this. She's next in line. She's next in line to command the Shan. And she's found this guy who is physically attractive, mentally attractive. Oh, and there's these so-coveted omens that point her to him. And he's already a well-tested battle commander. And it's like, you could not make a better,
literally everything about him.
She could not make a better husband and build a bear workshop. Or build a husband workshop, I guess. So she's like, this is the full package. And even if I don't really love him, I would be dumb to ignore the omens and marry him. So I think far before, just as Matt knew that he would wind up marrying her, I think she also knew very well before that she was going to marry this guy because he's strong. He's so lucky that he winds up being able to protect her when she needs it. That she's like, this is the full package. You'd have to be a fool not to marry this guy. And it will go against the omen.
Yes. Well, and of course, I mean, we do find out in this book that there is a sort of civil war going on in the Shan, and that all of the royal the royal family, the blood, have been killed. And it's a huge thing that, like, again, it almost, we basically find out that in hindsight, had Tuon not gotten kidnapped by Matt and allowed herself to be taken out of the city, then she
Oh, yeah.
would probably also
And
be.
then the ball, well, I guess for Tuon, potentially the bomb that gets dropped on her about High Lady Surah. Like,
Yeah.
she's the last one that can really stand there and be a pillar of leadership, seemingly, to the Shan-Chan.
Uh-huh.
And she's a dark friend.
Yep. Yep. And it's definitely a situation where, again, like, the Shan-Chan are very similar to the Aes Sedai in the way that that so many of them are so convinced that
Mhm.
dark friends don't exist in their society. They know that they do exist, but on the Isles, or on the other side of the ocean, they do not
Of
exist
course not.
in
They've
Shan-Chan
they've killed
territory.
all the Trollocs.
In the
They've
armies,
battled back every single force of
exactly.
darkness. The darkness has apparently, or the shadow has apparently essentially given up on that territory, at least for now, focusing on the Westland.
Yeah,
So for
effectively.
a big part of their life, the only
And so,
the only kind of difficulties they've had to deal with is any kind of combative trade in between the sea folk and themselves, and dealing with these random people that can use the power that, continuously pop up in their land and they don't know why, so we put a collar on them. Otherwise, everything
mhm,
pretty much for the Shan-Chan has been all peachy keen. The reason they're called the ever victorious army. They haven't even had to fight that
right?
hard.
And I mean, like, on some level, you know that there's been a lot of infighting between the family, just because, again, each of the people actually gets notoriety, gets promoted and whatnot based on things that they do when they're standing in the family. But at the same time, like, again, even that has not been that bad. Like, they talk a little bit about some espionage that has happened between the blood, some backstabbing that's happened between the blood, but, like, overall, they also seem to have a relatively good relationship when it comes right down to it. And so, really, the Shan
Yeah.
Chan have had it
Well, it
pretty
seems like
easy.
Huon.
Um, and because they've done a lot to make it that way, I'm not trying to take away their achievements, but again, they are convinced that there are no dark friends on the Shan-Chan side of the ocean. There are none in their own army that they send over to Randland. There's no dark friends that
Yeah.
exist because they've purged them all. And so, to find out that not only are there dark friends in the army, but one of them is actually in a pretty fucking high seat of power as far as, the army itself goes, is a huge slap in the face to the Shan-Chan.
Oh, yeah, and the way Tuon puts the infighting in between the blood, she's not even bitter about it. She's like, "This is
Yeah,
commonplace. This is what you do to move up. Nobody, if you take and you successfully assassinate the person over you, you move into their spot, and nobody thinks twice. They just weren't skilled enough to avoid it. So it's essentially like a Darwinistic type of mentality. They only
kinda.
died because they're not strong enough, and because you kill them, you're stronger, so you should move up."
Yeah, no, exactly. It's almost a, like, as you said, sort of Darwinistic and whatnot view, as well as, even on top of that, it's also viewed as, like, uh, almost the fact that, like, I don't know exactly how to. It's almost destiny. Like, if you were actually the one who was stronger, then not only is it survival of the fittest, but it's also, like, especially in Tuon's eyes, given that she's so focused on omens and things like that, she would probably almost say that, oh yeah, no, before, this was foretold. Like, it was foretold that you were stronger, so you absolutely should have done that. Therefore, now we're back to the Darwin thing. But, like, again, it's kind of crazy just how the Shan-Chan society works, in terms of the fact that, again, everybody just thinks that that's totally fine. And you're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
is it though?
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, it is a ridiculous revelation that Suroth is a dark friend.
Oh yeah.
And so now, Tuon's got to go back to Ebudar after um after she and Matt get married, and discovers all of this and has to deal with High Lady Suroth, who is now effectively um in control of Ebudar. And she doesn't get taken out in this book. It's just Tuon like starts to set plans to do that, but she's definitely still alive at the end of this book, I think. Right?
I believe she is.
Yeah.
I can check real quick. Yeah, because even by the end of the series, she's still supposedly alive.
Yeah.
She's declared a dark friend and stripped of her rank. She's then made a Koval and given to the Death Watch Guard to use as they wish until her hair grows out so she can be sold.
That's right. So she is actually dispensed of, but she doesn't get
Yeah.
killed.
She's basically taken from I'm in charge to your
I will be
yeah.
property in a very short amount of
And
time.
that last part, this does happen
In the
in the
epilogue.
epilogue. So that is still a part of
Yeah.
this book.
Yes, it is. Cool. So yeah, Tuon gets things done pretty quickly,
Yeah.
which is impressive, especially given the fact that while most of the people in Shanshan society still absolutely respect and follow the Empress and the blood and whatnot, um, Suroth has done a pretty good job of making sure that there aren't any of the blood, and so Tuon doesn't have as many allies as she would have going into the city after she's like when she comes back.
Yeah.
So she's definitely got a harder road to hoe, even though she does have a lot of um advantage still
Yeah.
based on how Shan Chan society works.
Yeah. So let's get to our main boy Rand here.
Oh, actually, before we go
Mhm.
there, I do also want to throw out there that this book is where Matt discover or really puts into motion his plan to use the fireworks as artillery, and it's a great scene,
Yeah, that's true.
or a great number of scenes, if you will.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So Rand,
our main man
yep,
Rand,
our main man Rand is preparing for Tarmangaiden. He's
correct?
starting to get everything together, and he comes to the realization. He's like, "Look, we can't fight the Shadow while part or half of my army is fighting the Shanchan."
Correct.
So he's like, so he arranges to meet with the daughter of the Nine Moons to try to negotiate a peace, and if that can't be done, at least some form of truce. While he's waiting to hear back on that, there's a pretty big battle against a horde of 100,000 Trollocs and Murdral, and it
Yep.
almost ends completely disastrously because in a moment of broken concentration, Luz Theron seizes control of Sidene from Rand
Mm-hmm.
and does everything he can to kill them both right then and there by just drawing on the power. And
Correct.
so, in his mind, Rand and Luz Theron come to a truce, basically saying, "Hey, work together with me, and we can both die at the last battle."
Yep.
This same army, at least according to Morden of the Trollocs and Murdral, was ordered into the ways by either someone posing as Samael or Samael himself.
Yes.
So then we get to the meeting with quote unquote Tuon, who of course is, well, by title, yeah,
Not.
daughter of the Nine Moons, but yeah, is actually not Tuon because Rand and his cohorts discover that she's not and is indeed Simmerage in disguise. Simmerage is captured, but it does cost Rand his left hand. And he
Yes.
lost his hand because he could not get Sidene away from Luz Theron in time. So literally
Correct.
locked it with his hand. And I
Yep.
believe the Shanchan spear.
Yes. Both of those are correct.
So
And I think that if I remember correctly, the Shan Chan spear is also completely
I
decimated.
believe so.
It's gone. It does not. He does not get to use it as the uh as a calling card anymore because it's
Yeah,
destroyed
I mean, and
along with his
it's
hand.
kind of symbolic as well because he, Rand's reasoning for keeping the Shan Chan spear was to remind himself that the Shan Chan are there. They're a threat. I have to fight them too. So it's kind of symbolic that it gets destroyed.
Correct. And this is a moment where he's yes, and this is a moment where he's really coming to terms with the fact that the
Yeah,
Shanchan don't have to be enemies. Now, granted, I mean they do not have the same ideas of what Randland looks like in some ways, just because the Shanchan definitely have their own ideas of what society should look like and all of that. But at the same time, they do come to the understanding
yeah,
that they should not be fighting each other. They should not be using each other's resources to make a problem for the other. They should be working
yeah,
together to, or at least not against each other. Because while the Shanshan definitely do fight later, they're not nearly as
yeah,
gung ho about it as they really should be. But again, they at least don't fight the armies of Randland.
yeah. Well, it makes sense because to them, the shadow is still a far off, near non-existent, if not a legendary, kind of like it doesn't really exist thing anymore.
Kinda. Yeah. And that goes back
So
to what we were talking about
yeah,
with, Shan Chan and Suroth and the Dark Friend.
yeah. So Simmeridge being captured, she's like, I'm gonna deliver one last psychological blow and say that using some of Grendal's knowledge, that Rand has a mental disorder that allows him to communicate with his past self, and this condition is almost universally fatal. And thinking it would hurt Rand or break Rand or something like that, Rand just steals himself even more as he continues to gather up people for time again.
Yep.
Harmon. There we go. So it doesn't do anything to Rand except confirm what he essentially already thought.
Yeah, because he's always thought that 100%. Like, he is
I'm
never.
going mad. Is Luce? Are you really there? Talk to me, damn it! And now he's having conversations with Luce there. And
Yes, and of course there's always been just a little bit of an unsurety, as you said, are you really there, blah blah blah, that really he has just made loose there and up. There is not actually an entity in his head. It's just madness, which we all
yeah,
know is kind of true, but it is a manifestation in some ways that is sentient. I mean, it literally he does talk about right at the beginning. It doesn't really show any knowledge of what's going on around Rand, but like even within the first couple of books that he ends up talking to Lews Therin or trying to communicate with him or realizing that it's not just a voice, it does seem to be more present and whatnot. He does realize that it starts to actually react to what's going on around him. And so by
yeah,
now, he's pretty fucking sure that it's an actual entity. It's not just him. While it is sort
yeah,
of a manifestation of the madness, it's more than that.
yeah. And let's go ahead and talk about this since we're on the topic and the series, as far as the reader is concerned, has confirmed the existence of Luce Therin.
Yes,
The voice of Luce Therin is not actually a 100% legitimate second person inside Rand's head.
correct.
The voice of Luce Therin is formed in part because of the madness, like you said, Daniel, but also in part because of Rand's 100% inability to accept his past life as Luce Therin Kinsley,
Correct.
as the dragon. So all of those memories, all of that experience, like we see, like Birgitta keeps all of hers when she's, torn from Teleron Rion. It's the same sort of memories that Birgitta has. And it's Rand with those memories, but he can't accept his past life. He can't accept that he is a reincarnation of this historically great, yet in the end, absolutely horrible figure that abandoned the world to madness after being there to supposedly save it. I mean, that is why so many people fear the dragon.
Yep.
And then we're not talking about heroin here.
Yes.
So that is a big part because Lews Therin, before he went mad, was seen as the pinnacle of humanity's, well, not pinnacle of humanity, but the salvation of humanity. That he's doing all these great works. He's pulling the nations together. He's getting everybody to work along. He's ruling fairly, and it's kind of like the story of Avatar, the Last Airbender. And when the world needed him most, he vanished
Kinda.
and created Dragon Mountain.
Yeah, not even
And
just that, because again, he's crazy, and so I mean, it's even more. It's basically if the Avatar had blown up the world and then disappeared.
if the Avatar himself had destroyed the, what is it, Western or Eastern Air Temple, whatever one he comes from, and murdered all of the other airbenders,
Yeah,
and then just
and then just made a big
basically
mountain.
tried to nuke himself
Just made a
and
big mountain.
disappeared. Yeah, just made a big mountain. That's basically
Made
what's
a
happened here.
giant
Because
dick right at the top of Vagina City.
yeah, so it's kind of one of those things. Like the world saw him as this salvation figure. Then they start to hear all these rumors and stuff. Because it's not very long after he kills all of his kin that he does that. Ishmael comes in, cures enough of his madness where he can realize what he's done, and he goes full emo suicide nuke.
Oh yeah, it's like people are still bloody on the ground. Like
Oh
it's
yeah,
probably within a day. Like it's
oh yeah,
no more than a week based on what is described there. That and a week is probably on the very like outer edge of what's possible. It's
yeah.
almost
I would say it's either
immediately
the day or a day and a half max
something
after.
like that. Yeah, it's very very short
Yeah.
afterwards.
So everything that happens, this is what people are discovering later because he doesn't turn his palace into Dragon Mountain. He travels
Correct.
and creates Dragon Mountain. So people are going to find what happened.
Yep.
And they're already going to see all these other male channelers going berserk. And at first, nobody's going to know why.
Yes.
All they're going to see is the 100 companions that were led by the fearless dragon to strike a finishing blow against the Dark One, now literally ripping the world asunder, turning entire cities into glass floors.
Yep.
So people have every right historically to fear the dragon.
Oh,
And so
without
why
a
shouldn't
doubt.
Rand? Yeah, so why shouldn't Rand not only buy into the story and fear the dragon, but be intimately afraid of what it means that he is that soul reincarnated and
Yes.
having people he loves and cares about?
Yep.
How could you come to, I mean, everybody deals with things differently, but how could you really come to terms with that given the stories he's given, knowing the things he knows, and being literally suddenly pushed off a cliff into the deep end of it?
Yeah.
He literally in one book went from, I'm happy in my little town, there's this weird guy in a black cloak that's not affected by the wind following us though, that's kind of weird, to I have to defeat the Dark One and save humanity, and I might not even succeed, and I could kill everybody I ever know and love while going along with it. What the fuck you mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an incredibly traumatic time because I can't remember the time span that Eye of the World takes place over, but I can't imagine it's more than a couple months.
Oh yeah, it's honestly the actual events of the Eye of the World, like the book itself, is like maybe a month long.
Yeah,
Because yeah,
that sounds
there's a
right.
certain
Yeah,
amount of traveling that happens in the book, but like other than that, the events are pretty much happening like boom, 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 boom. They're the only times that there's any downtime is right after they get separated. People end up
yeah,
taking a certain amount of time to travel back and forth to different places. But again, the very most that it could happen is like 2 months if I'm remembering the math of how long people take to travel. And as I said, it's probably not even like that's on the outside. It's probably more like a month. Could be as little as like 3 weeks.
yeah. So when you look at all that, for one, you can see why so many people will hearken to the Wheel of Time series as a sort of almost deep dive example into the reality of how our world deals with males with mental illness. And then you can really start to better understand Rand.
Oh
Because
yeah.
my first read through, I honestly thought that he was talking to his past life, that was just how the soul of the dragon worked. And as I got into looking at it more, analyzing it more, reading the theory for the first time, I was like, that makes a lot more sense because it does explain. I can't say too much because it doesn't happen yet, but things that happen with Rand later on in the series.
Yes.
So all Simmerage really did is help Rand not feel quite as crazy and lay, another couple boards on the framework for Rand to do what he has to do later in the series.
Correct.
So, yeah. And if none of you knew that about the voice in Rand's head, or you hadn't figured that out yet,
You kind of do in this
you'll-
book.
yeah, this is I think the book that puts it out the most. The next books do. Whenever the thing that I'm thinking about happens to Rand, and those of you that have read it or know about it know what I'm talking about. That kind of solidifies everything.
Yes. No, that
But
fully
just like
finishes explaining what really got started to be explained in this book.
yeah, just like how Eye of the World lays the framework for how to cleanse Sidene, this book finishes out laying any kind of explanation you really need to understand the voice of Luce there.
Yep.
But yeah, so Rand's just getting ready, loses a hand, and captures another Forsaken,
Indeed.
or captures a Forsaken. Well,
It's another one.
almost another one, because he didn't really capture Asmodene.
He had help capturing
Yeah,
Asmodean.
Lanfear pretty much he had Asmodene dead to rights, but if Lanfear hadn't have done what she did that Rand didn't know how to do,
Yeah, he would have just had to kill him. Correct.
yeah, then he would have just had to kill him.
Correct.
So, you want to talk us through what Perrin be up to?
Absolutely. So, as we've seen in the last two books, Perrin has been working diligently to try and save Fail from the Shido camp, because the Shido have basically posted up in an area in I don't remember exactly what country. It's almost like on the border of a couple of countries. But anyway, it's neither here nor there where it is necessarily. But Perrin has been following them for a couple of books until they stop. Because mostly they've been on the move up till this point. But at the very end of Crossroads of Twilight, actually more like in the middle of Crossroads of Twilight, they stop and they actually chill for a while. And so Perrin gets maps of the area and maps of the city that they're in, and Perrin puts together a rescue attempt to get Fail and Merrigan, who is Morghese, and also Alejandra, who is the Queen of Galedan, who were all captured by the Shido, out of Shido control. So they do actually end up doing it. They actually he does make an alliance with one of the Shan Chan, a banner general named Tai Li. And they get together. They use Damane and the Aiel channelers, or not the Aiel channelers. The wise ones that they're traveling with.
Wise ones, and some fork root.
And some fork root, yes. They lace the Shido water supply with fork root, which makes the wise ones in the Shido camp unable to channel.
Or at least not channel much. I think it depends on how much they get.
Correct, which basically makes them effectively useless in the fighting. And then as stated, the Damane, the wise ones, and then of course just the forces under Perrin, including a small number of Aiel fighters, a larger contingent of Two Rivers men, as well as Alejandra's army from Gildan, or really her personal guard from Gildan, and then the winged guards of Mayen. Wow, names. Okay, the winged guards.
There's a
who
lot
are,
of them, to be fair.
There really
so-
are, but still, Bereline's guards and an army from Mayen. They all go in and pretty much take out the Aiel. The Shido are effectively decimated. It's kind of unfortunate that they lose a lot of people in the process, but they are definitely able to take out the Shido effectively completely. The Shido are pretty much no more after this. Especially because in the fighting, Savannah
This one
is
little motherfucker. Oh, I thought we were talking about. I thought we were about to talk about Arum,
Oh, well, we'll talk about that in just a moment.
little motherfucker.
But yeah, so Savannah is actually captured, and the Shido are just gone. Like they, as I said, they are decimated to the point where any of them who are still alive just end up being Gaishane, I'm sure, and or just going back to the Aiel Waste, which is the majority of them that are still alive are just led by Tharava back to the Aiel Waste. And they end up taking Galena Kazban with them when they go to the Waste, and she's just a prisoner again, even more so because now instead of just thinking that they have a captured Aes Sedai, they know that they have a black Aja Aes Sedai with them, and she doesn't even get anywhere near the freedom that she had when she was originally captured by them. And Tharava made her, or really, Savannah made her Gaishane, except that she doesn't start as Gaishane. She starts as Datsova.
Yeah. And the Rava, the Rava. Strong Miss T.
Yes.
Whenever she was there at Dumais Wells,
Yes, she was.
and she was a part of the party with with some of the surviving Shido IO that returned to Savannah's tents with Galena Caspin in the first place.
Correct.
And the Rava is by no means weak, middle of the road. She is among the strongest of the modern Aes Sedai.
Yes.
The Wheel of Time companion, which I guess use a sort of D&D level scaling, puts her at a 12 plus 1.
Yes.
Which is only 2 levels above Galena's level at 14 with a 2. I don't understand how the ranking works. Maybe the lower the number, the stronger. I don't know. Don't worry
actually, the bigger the number, the bigger the number on the left side, the weaker. So she's actually stronger than Galena.
Okay, so the lower the number, the stronger you are.
Yes, sorry, correct.
Okay,
That's
so we were saying the same thing, just in different ways.
Yes, no, totally, exactly.
6 eggs in one hand, half a dozen in the other, kind of thing. But she's strong. Very strong.
She's very strong,
especially in the modern age. And it's almost poetically hilarious that Galena has basically tried to betray everybody, including Karen and Fael, just to try to get away. And now, probably the main one that oversaw her transport back to Savannah's tents is now not only still in control of her again, but is in charge.
Yeah. Well, and that was actually one of the big things is that Savannah, in case you don't fully remember sort of the what happened, Savannah takes over control of the Shido after Couladin is killed. Because he's effectively clan chief when they cross over the Dragon Wall. But then he gets killed in the battle for Kyrian.
Yeah, I believe Matt kills him. We don't even see it on
Matt
screen.
Beheads him off screen.
Yeah. So it's like you were so full of shit, Couladin, that you weren't even important enough to die in the pages we read. Just behind the scenes. Oh, Matt shows up. I almost said Macat. Matt shows up and he's like, "Oh yeah, he's dead. Here's his head."
Yep.
Everybody's like, "Fuck, Matt. All right."
Yep. But so then Savannah takes over control of the clans. She helps put into motion the plan by the Aes Sedai to capture Rand.
Yeah.
Um, and then she betrays the Aes Sedai and starts fighting them at Dumai's Wells, which is actually the sort of opportunity that Rand needs to escape from the box, that Perrin needs to catch up and start fighting, and the Ashaman need to uh, have time to arrive at Dumai's Wells to save Rand as well.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
what's
then,
interesting,
no, go ahead.
so still talking about this whole lead up to Galena being where she is now. Whenever, uh, so the Reva was able to take some of Savannah's power and forces Galena to obey her by using some form of binder or oath rod.
Yes, it's
So,
actually an oath rod.
yeah. So it's interesting. I don't see, and I don't recall an explanation, but I believe Galena is still under under that obedience restriction.
I don't remember. Okay, her whole thing while she's in the camp is getting Marigan, or really Fail's party, one of Fail, Marigan, or Alejandra, to steal the oath rod back so that she can get out of that oath. I don't remember if she's ever actually successful in that. They are pretty. They put together a number of plans to actually get it out of Tharava's tent.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't remember if any of those are specifically successful. So she may actually still be under that original oath, or she may have gotten out of it. But you bet your bottom dollar that Tharava will make her swear again if if she did get out of the first one when they're on their way back to the Io Waste.
Oh yeah, I think she does get out of it because they're talking about whenever Fael and her party are captured by the Shadow, it's Galena that is sent to heal them, and she can only channel when instructor given permission, and she blackmails Fael after because she knows or finds out who she is to steal the
Correct.
oath rod because Galena is forbidden to pick it up.
Correct. Which is actually kind of funny because if you remember that scene where she blackmails Fail, the only reason that she's actually able to blackmail Fail is because she knows Perrin. And Fail sort of accidentally trying to make sure that no one knows that she's a Bashir, because that is a more well-known name throughout the world in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
She gives her Perrin's last name. She calls herself Fail T. Ibarra.
Mm-hmm.
And Galena latches onto that immediately because Perrin is actually more important in the world than Davram Bashir, because he's Taviran and because he's a close friend of Rand and because of, blah, blah, blah. Even though her father is more well known, Perrin is actually more leverage on her. And so she ends up going, fuck, I made a mistake. I didn't mean to do that. Fuck. Just kind of a humorous thing to have happen when you're like, all right, cool. So I'm going to specifically use this name rather than this one because this is more leverage, and then find out that you've made a terrible mistake. But anyway, all of the lead up to that, Savannah is still clan chief to the Shido after they are separated by Moradin. No, by Samael. Samael who does this. Samael and Grandal trick the Aiel into using these traveling boxes and separates them all over Randland. And Savannah is successful in sort of getting some of them back together. A lot of them just die immediately because they are put into places where there are other armies and they're just not large enough to go ahead and take on the armies of the rest of the world. But But there's a number of them that come back together under Savannah's leadership. But later, Tharava kind of realizes that she's not everything that she says that she should be, and tells her that she needs an advisor. And Tharava becomes that advisor and basically takes over control from her. And it's kind of a shit thing that happens to Savannah, not because she's a good person, but because she had all of these plans like so put together. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting thing, and so now Tharava was in some ways still in charge, or like already in charge, because she had wrestled it away from Savannah, and now Savannah gets captured and disgraced, and then Tharava is in charge still. Like, she's just now in charge again, and you're just like, okay, well, this is not really that different. Like, now she doesn't have to fight with someone, but anyway, I don't know. It's an interesting sort of hierarchical change, that like Tharava is able to just hold on to control of the Shido when she basically had it already anyway.
Oh yeah.
But again, back to this thing, the actual battle for Fail in some ways. As they are fighting, it does not look like it's going amazingly well for the armies that Perrin is leading. It's not going terribly, but they're probably not going to win it when Tam actually shows up with reinforcements from the two rivers. And it's great, because he basically saves them. Unfortunately, also in the course of the battle, Masima has poisoned Aram to he's convinced him that Perrin's yellow eyes, basically that because Perrin is a wolf brother, which Aram doesn't actually know. I think Fail is actually the only one of all of these people who knows what his yellow eyes mean. Aram tries to kill Perrin during the battle and gets killed himself because, yeah.
And see, this
Perrin just needs to take him out.
This is a very good lesson, historically, currently, whatever you want to look at it as what happens to people that what happens to some people that become overzealous and over pious. So you have Meisama, who has become like uber pious to the Dragon Reborn, and has everybody convinced, and I believe even has himself convinced, that everything he is doing is for the sake of Rand, for the sake of the dragon, for the sake of the world. Because he's serving the dragon, so by extension, he's serving to save the world. And he gets, instead of, surely he feels that he should be a right-hand man to Rand. And instead, he gets passed off to Rand's friend Perrin. Something he is already going to be pissed about. And the two of them butt heads frequently. Because
Correct.
Masama is frequently trying to say, no, we should do this. No, I believe the will of the dragon is this. And Perrin's like, this dude's been my friend since my childhood. You think you fucking know better than me? Get out of here. Who are you? And so it's a very petty maneuver. Whether Masama truly believes that what he's doing is better for Rand or not, it's still a very petty move. Because he sees that Aram is so devoted to Perrin and so devoted to Fael. I mean, since he left the Tinkers, the traveling people, whichever you feel is less offensive to a fictional people, he's done nothing but try to be literally the right hand to Perrin, and always there for him, and always there for Fael. And it just shows how impressionable, and to a degree secluded from the world that Aram has been his entire life. Because it doesn't really take Mesama that long to pollute the mind of Aram. And to pollute it so bad, where he's like, you know what? I'm going to kill this guy that I've been doing nothing but following and serving ever since I left my family. So you have to feel kind of bad for Aram because given left to his own devices, he would still have been right there trying everything he can to prove himself to Perrin, to rescue Fael, to protect Perrin, even though Perrin really never needs it. And you
Correct.
have this bastard that thinks that he's the best thing since sliced bread, or second best thing, because the best thing's the dragon,
Indeed.
that takes it upon himself to, well, I'm doing the right things for the right reason, so I have to be right.
Yes.
And that's the thing that sucks so much about Perrin's camp in this instance is there's two seriously named character betrayals that causes a third character's betrayal. And Perrin is really torn up whenever he has to kill Aram. Because he still sees Aram as that mischievous kind of, but utterly harmless little tinker kid that wanted nothing
the
more.
one who almost seduced Egwene
Oh, yeah.
when they first met.
Yeah. And, I think Perrin got a little jelly there. I think it was part jealousy and
He totally did.
part I'm looking out for my brother.
Yes, no, that's exactly what it was. There was a little bit of jealousy because he's definitely always looked at Egwene as a sister, but again, they've also been relatively young, and in the Two Rivers, you can't get married until a certain age.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you can, people don't normally get married for a little while after that. I mean, it's still very like country bumpkin kind of town, so I'm guessing they get married relatively early. Like it doesn't take very many years before they get married once they're sort of the age. But at the same time, like Perrin has not been of marrying age that long himself, and Egwene literally just came of marrying age when when the story starts.
Yeah.
And so when they leave the Two Rivers almost immediately after she gets to braid her hair, I think that Perrin knows, obviously he knows along with everybody else in town, that Rand and Egwene are destined to get married. That is the trajectory that they are on, without a doubt, before they leave the Two Rivers. If they had not left the Two Rivers, Rand and Egwene would have been married.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
But now they're off on their own, and Perrin is starting to consider Egwene not totally just a sister. Like, he absolutely has that mentality, and he knows that she and Rand are probably going to get married. But at the same time, he's also like, but I'm also thinking about me now. And the fact that I would like to go ahead and do that as well once I get back to the Two Rivers. So now I'm actually sort of viewing Egwene a little bit differently because we're all alone on this journey. I mean, we meet up with Elias, but overall, there's just the two of us.
Just the two of us.
Also,
we can make it if we meet Elias.
And then, of course, add to that the fact that they've been through. No, by the time they meet her, they have not actually gone through the White Cloaks. So they've not totally gone through that traumatic experience, but I mean they've gone through a bit of a traumatic experience together in Shadar Logoth and whatnot,
and you can see
and so
how he really considers Elaine. I mean, not Elaine, Egwene.
Yeah.
Because after everything with Aram, and after all the girls dance and make him blush, and Aram does everything he can to swoon Egwene, he's so much more protective.
He
of
is.
Egwene after that. I mean, to the point where he doesn't even want her to look over the hill because a fox has just been shredded by Raven.
Yep.
And I'm not saying he wouldn't have done that before, but he's so passionate about sheltering her, not just from physical danger, but any kind of things that might look unpleasant. And it's almost like,
yes.
And
it's one of two things. Either he's actually really started considering her as someone that he could be with, or arguably, I think this is probably more what it is, just because, again, in his mind, he's mad at her more for Aram because of Rand. That's definitely true.
Oh, yeah.
He's definitely like looking out for my brother, definitely looking out for the fact that she is basically betrothed, and also like protective older brother.
Yeah.
But like later on, it's so I need like I am the only influence here that can protect Egwene.
Yeah.
She is my responsibility. I need to do this both for myself, whether it's because I'm actually sort of falling for her in some ways, or because I'm just, as stated, her protective older brother, or because I need to get her back to Rand.
IL Roland.
Oh yes.
And why?
This is actually a really sad part of this whole situation.
And this is why
Just because
Fael does not tell parents
yes.
what Roland was doing. So Roland is one of the brotherless IL.
Yes, and he's actually the one who made Fael Gaishan in the first place. She is technically Roland's Gaishan.
And he's one of the few that is helping them escape.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Perrin doesn't know that. There's no way he could have known that. And when he sees an IL veiled right there at Fael, there's nothing else he can think but another one. And so he kills him.
Yes. Well, and of course, it's also true that when it comes right down to it, for better or for worse, sort of a bloodlust. I mean, Perrin is actually not really the kind or the type to have a straight up bloodlust. He actually is definitely very stoic and put together and whatnot. But during battle, a number of times in the series, his sort of fighting that like red veil over his eyes and his vision and whatnot when he gets into a fight has actually been what's kept him alive. And so that is sort of the thing that he goes into when he's fighting, is that I just kill what's in front of me. I just kill what's in front of me, and I just concentrate on the next second and staying alive and killing what's in front of me. And he does take a moment to know, the difference between his soldiers and the enemy. I'm certainly not saying that he's completely blinded or berserk, but that is the way that he has stayed alive. And so when he comes up, as you said, to a veiled Shido Aiel right around Fael, he doesn't even think about it. He doesn't stop to ask any questions. He doesn't stop to think about whether that person may or may not be a friend. He doesn't do any of that, because what keeps him alive is enemy in front of me, kill it. Enemy in front of me, kill it.
Oh, yeah.
And so it is really unfortunate that, again, Fael convinces in some ways Roland to help them and gets him killed in the process in some ways.
Oh, no one's fault. It was really no one's fault.
It wasn't. That's the crazy thing. I mean, if Perrin had stopped to ask a question, Roland probably wouldn't be dead, but Perrin probably would be. Not necessarily in this scene, because I don't think that Roland would have killed him, but he either would have been dead before in another battle because he would have stopped to ask a question there and someone would have killed him, or in this battle he would have done that too many times and just have been dead before he even made it to Fael. But at the same time, it is still like it's a sad situation, because Fael, as stated, convinces Roland to get him and some of his buddies to help them get out. And Fael would probably be dead without them, but Roland would still be alive if she hadn't done that.
So, on to Egwene.
Indeed.
So, at the end of the last book, Egwene was captured while sealing off the harbor of Tarvalon by turning the harbor chains that were already raised into Koyandar. Did I get close?
Correct.
Did I get close enough to pronunciation that time?
Definitely, I knew what you were talking about.
How do you say it?
Quendiar.
Quendiar. There we go.
There we go. Perfect. That was perfect.
I would hope so, right then. So during her captivity, she manages to still hold counsel and make contact with who are still being called the Saladar Aes Sedai, or the Rebel Aes
Indeed.
Sedai. the true Aes Sedai, whichever moniker you want to give them. Through
Yes.
Teleron Rion.
Because of course the people in the White Tower are well aware that she can chant or that she can travel, and so they're keeping an incredibly close eye on her and whatnot, so that she can't actually leave to physically to go and speak with the Aes Sedai or do anything else that helps Rand or blah blah blah. But of course, the people in the tower are also so blinded to their ignorance that they totally allow her to just enter Teleron Riyadh whenever she wants because they don't give a shit when she sleeps.
Yeah, I think they actually are continuously dosing her with fork root so that she can't travel.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, they've basically like taken her down to the point where she is a symbol of their victory. So they want to keep her alive and they want to keep her, in Novice White to show off their power. But at the same time, they're also like, yeah, you're not going to learn anything. You're not going to do anything. You're just a prisoner. So you can't channel. Here's some fork root. Here's some more fork root. Here's another thing of fork root. Just sit here and be a symbol.
Yeah.
But again, she doesn't need to channel to get into Teller and Riyadh, so she can still totally be helpful and smart and uh, sneaky by just going to sleep and entering Teller and Riyadh.
And thanks to her time with the IL Wise One, she doesn't even need a Terangrial to do it. She can do it at will.
Correct. Yep.
So, she is continuously being disciplined because no matter what they do, no matter what they say, no matter how much fork root they give her or whatever happens, she refuses to acknowledge Elida as the true Amerlin and continuously calls her the
Correct.
false Amerlin.
Yep.
And she does her very Amerlin Aes Sedai tricks now. I call them tricks, but they kind of are political games, basically, of spreading rumors around the White Tower about how Elida is not suitable to be Amerlin. How she shouldn't be
Yes.
Amerlin. How she got the position through backhanded, dirty, back alley channels and is
Indeed.
obviously unable to do the job. And she maintains her dignity. This is what all of her time, her captivity with the Shan-Chan, her time training with the Wise Ones and coming clean about her lies, all of her practices in serenity and patience while being the Amerlin for the Rebel Aes Sedai, all of that has made her the Egwene that's able to stand or sit around and deal with this. I believe there's even a point in this book, I think, where she's getting beat by the Mistress of Novices and she laughs. And the mistress is like,
Yeah.
what is wrong with you? And she's like, it's just funny that y'all can't do anything to me.
Yeah.
And it's one of those scenes where you're like, I actually kind of like you right now, Egwene. Not bad.
Yes. Well, and of course it's funny on some level because like we all know that the Aes Sedai can't actually do anything to her that is going to affect her permanently. Partially because we've actually learned on the way to with Elaine and Nynaeve especially on their way to Camelin that there are actually very specific rules about what the Aes Sedai are allowed to do to sisters. Because sort of all bets are off as far as like other people who aren't Aes Sedai or, accepted or novices, as well as, dark friends. Like the rules get changed even further when they know that somebody's a dark friend and whatnot. But they themselves have kind of hamstrung their ability to even do anything, not only to Egwene, but especially to Egwene, by the rules that they have on what you're allowed to do as far as questioning sisters, accepted, or novices.
Yep.
And so even if they wanted to ramp things up and like do more and actually torture her and blah, 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 they wouldn't even really be allowed to by Tower law. Now, granted, I mean, just throwing this out there, and anybody who's listening, yes, I am well aware that Egwene or that Elida and a number of people in her camp have already shown a propensity to not care about those rules. I'm aware. We're good. But at the same time, like, there is still a certain amount of tower law that they have to follow because they've made themselves do so.
I mean, you can't
And so,
show
like,
somebody as a symbol of your victory while bastardizing tower law.
right?
Because then you're putting on display
Exactly.
how you don't care about your own laws, and that undermines the
Exactly. And
entire
so they've
validity.
tied their own
Yeah, and
hands
if you do that,
in
it
some
undermines
ways.
your entire validity as a symbol of power, which only makes the rebel Aes Sedai look so much better.
Correct. And especially given this situation, it's literally just a catch-22 for Elida and everybody who's in her in the tower and still following her. That again, they need to make the rebels look bad. They need to make Elida look like the only one true Amerlin. Like the rebels are actually just a bunch of idiots to follow anybody but Elida. But of course, by doing that, they have to hold up Egwene as a symbol of, look at this. This is the Amerlin that they chose. What idiots. Look how bad they are. But also can't get anything out of her because they cannot hold her up as a symbol of, look at this dumb child Aes Sedai or child Amerlin that they did or that they put up, while also torturing her, while also getting out of anything out of her by, while also using any methods that are actually going to affect Egwene. And so it's almost humorous just how much of a corner Elida and the tower have backed themselves into as far as this particular thing.
And she has forbidden the rebel Aes Sedai from rescuing her. That's something that she said,
Correct.
no, it'll just prove them right or something to that effect. But during this time,
well, and she also kind of realizes that, like, again, while she's not more helpful in the tower, I think that she actually realizes, and everyone actually realizes, that she would be more helpful outside the tower. She is actually still very effective in the tower. And so now that they've gotten themselves into this situation, she's like, no. Based on where we are right now, I can do more where I am. So leave me here. Don't come in and try to rescue me. Definitely don't just travel into the White Tower and fucking slaughter everybody. I want to do this way. Do this way.
Yep.
Which I totally agree with
yeah.
her. I actually think that she is very, very smart in terms of the fact that she really is. I always had a little bit of a problem with Egwene, and not overall. Like, I do actually like Egwene as a character if you look at everything that she's done and whatnot. But there are a number of times in these books where I feel like Egwene grows too fast, and not to the point where it's like, oh, she's growing too fast. It's like, it's not incredibly realistic that she would actually grow that fast. She would still be dumber than this in some ways. She would not be as whatever. And this is one of those moments where I kind of sit there and say, I don't actually think that Egwene would be as smart and cunning as she is, but I'm also okay with it. Because it's so successful. It's so smart. It's definitely the right way to go as far as the character is concerned and what actually forwards the books. That she actually just realizes that she's better where she is and uses every ounce of ability that she has where she is to forward her own agendas. It's great.
So during this time, the White Tower itself and the rebel Aes Sedai send Aes Sedai to the Black Tower to bond Ashaman. The rebels do it as a kind of offer to Rand to counter the number of their Aes Sedai that bonded Ashaman, or rather, it's an offer from Rand to counter the Ashaman that basically forcibly bonded Aes Sedai. That captured them and then bonded them.
Yes, because at this point, Rand has found out that Logain and a number of his faction forcibly bonded all of the Aes Sedai that they captured when the Aes Sedai sent Baelida to destroy the Black Tower arrived there and realized their horrible mistake.
I thought that was a time action.
It was so okay. It's Logain that actually goes ahead and does it. It is actually on order from Taim, according to Logain. It's actually a little bit unclear whether it was Taim who gave the order, because we don't see it happen. Like, we don't see Taim give that order. So as far as the audience is concerned, we have Logain's word on it, because in Crossroads of Twilight, Logain shows up in I don't remember where they are, but Rand and Nynaeve and Min post up somewhere, and they're visited by Loyal and Logain. And at that meeting, Logain tells Rand about bonding the Aes Sedai and that it was on order from Taim, which, to be fair, I don't think he's lying, so I'm pretty sure that it actually was. Like, it doesn't seem like Logain to lie there, but at the same time, we only have Logain's word about it.
So, but all that happened.
Yes, and so in response to that, because that actually happens last book, Rand specifically says, look, I don't even necessarily think that you were wrong to do so, especially given the fact that, you know, there were 3 Aes Sedai with me, sort of. Yeah, with me. Who actually bonded Ashaman already. So I know that this is a relationship that we can have. It's not unprecedented. But at the same time, I don't feel good about the fact that, you know, these 3 Aes Sedai bonded Ashaman warders because they wanted it. You bonded Aes Sedai forcibly. So now we have to go to the Rebel Aes Sedai, and because, of course, I definitely don't trust the Tower Aes Sedai, we're going to the Rebel Aes Sedai, and we're going to offer as many of the Aes Sedai as were forcibly bonded. That's how many Ashaman we will offer to them as warders if they would like. And that actually ends up being sort of the most official and kind of nice handshake that the Saladar Aes Sedai and the Ashaman, or really just the Black Tower in general, have, because they actually do take them up on the offer. Sorry, that's next book. I apologize for spoiling a little bit. They do take them off on the offer, unsurprisingly, because wow, does it work great in everyone's favor when Ashaman and Aes Sedai are bonded.
Oh yeah. So on to Loyal. At this point, Loyal and Aerith have been married, or they get married in this book.
Correct.
By Elder Haman. And recognizing that the Ogier cannot simply sit back in their steadings and watch the fight with the Shadow, Loyal says, I'm going to speak to the Ogier at the Great Stump and say, look, you can fight or you can die. If you don't fight, don't be surprised when the Shadow destroys the world. It's Loyal and Elder Haman that both take up axes during the big Trolloc attack and fight. And Rand asks Loyal to go find and close all the way gates. But since he's decided to go to the Great Stump, in a almost surprising turn, Elder Haman says, you know what? No, you go talk to the Stump. I'll go close all the way gates.
Yes, well, it's one of those wonderful coming of age moments where, of course, Aerith and Loyal's mother and Elder Haman, who have been trekking all over creation to go ahead and find Loyal and bring him home, finally catch up with Loyal. They actually get to a point where they're in the same place, and that's when Loyal and Aerith really realize that it's one of the weirdest love stories, because, of course, Ogier tradition is just so strange to us humans who are so hasty and whatnot. But he and Aerith really realize that they are in love with each other and they do want to get married, and so they do. His mother really realizes that not only, well, it's his mother and Elder Hammond who both considered Loyal a child. When he left home without getting approval from the elders, they were absolutely like, Loyal's a child. What the fuck are you doing? We need to go and save Loyal from himself because he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But when they finally catch up with him, they realize that in some ways they were actually wrong. That because in some ways Loyal took it upon himself to leave the steading and travel the world, he is actually probably the most well observed and the most understanding of the world and whatnot of all of the Ogier.
True.
That the Ogier have literally just sequestered themselves in their steading so hard that they don't even realize what's going on in the world, and that Loyal is the only Ogier who really gets it, and that not only is he no longer a child, he may actually be one of the smartest. I use that in quotes because that's not really like the right word, but the most well-informed and whatnot of all of the Ogier. Which is, of course, why, in the end, Elder Hammond effectively reneges or relinquishes control of his ability to go speak at the stump to Loyal, because he realizes that Loyal is the best Ogier to do such a thing.
Yeah.
And that's why they sort of switch roles at that point, and Elder Hammond, as you said, agrees to go close off the Waygates as sort of an offensive maneuver as against the Shadow, which is very un-Ogier. And Loyal is the one who goes to speak to the stump because he will be the most persuasive because he actually knows what he's talking.
So in this book, we also get that crafty scene or series of scenes from Nynaeve, because Lan has made the decision that he's going to go to Shinir to fight the Shadow. And Nynaeve is like, okay, I can't make you stop this, but, you know, I love you. You please promise that you'll take on anybody who wishes to ride with you, and that you'll go to Falmoran first. And
well, and of course,
he
I love
agrees.
that she doesn't even really give him the choice to go to Falmoran.
Well, no, she just makes him promise.
She doesn't say that in the promise. Yeah, she just makes him promise and pledge to go ahead and take on everyone who rides with him on the way to Shinar. And he totally agrees, partially because he thinks that she's going to put him in Shinar. And so he's just like, okay, yeah, I'll take on everybody who agrees to fight with me in Shinar.
Well, Falmoran is the capital city of Shinar.
Sorry, yes. Yeah,
so she's basically like,
you are correct. She actually does make him so that's part of the pledge.
So she's basically like, promise me that you'll take whoever says they'll ride with you, and that the first place she'll head to is Falmoran. And he's like,
done.
Okay, yeah, sure. And she's like, okay, I'll help you out.
And then she's like, well, and he's like, great, yeah, that's totally fine. I was already gonna be in Falmoran. It was gonna be great anyway, so I'll take on any Shinarin who want to be in.
Could you, basically travel me to the Borderlands? And she's like, sure. And she puts him out on the coast, the literal coast of the Aerith Ocean at World's End in Saldea, so that he has to travel hundreds of miles to even reach Falmoran.
And I think that my favorite part is that, like, okay, just we don't actually see it. We don't actually physically see him show up where she travels him to. And we don't see his face, we don't see whatever, but I love the idea and like the sort of reaction from him of just like showing up there, realizing where he is, and then just giving, like, finally, I mean, I know that he's done it a couple of times, but finally just like a full mouth smile, and just in his head just being like, Nynaeve, you motherfucker.
God damn it! But I love this woman,
Exactly.
and she's not done there.
She's
She
not.
then takes and uses traveling to go ahead of him throughout the borderlands to find the scattered remnants of the Valkyrie countrymen and saying, "My husband's coming." You know, the quoted line, you know, we quoted it last episode. You know, my
Yep.
husband rides for Tarwin's Gap towards Timageddon. You know, who will he ride alone? And basically goes in front of,
And just about everyone that she talks to goes, "Yeah, sure, where is he?" And she's like, "Here, go find him."
and they spread the word.
Uh-huh.
The golden crane banner flies. So we
Oh
get
man.
another good scene. Finally, Galad is no longer going to be a shitlord. He's still a bit of a shitlord for a little bit, but
Well, actually, before we get to that, I just want to imagine, like, again, we just had the tableau of Lan showing up in the Borderlands, realizing that he's all the way on the other side of the continent. Goes, this motherfucking Nynaeve. I love her. And then he starts traveling towards Falmoran. Can you also just imagine as like men just show up to like ride with Lan towards Falmoran and towards Starwind's Gap? Just like every single one of them who arrives, they're like, yeah, no, Nynaeve sent me. Or like, you know, my countrymen talked to Nynaeve
we saw your wife.
T T Almandragoran and whatnot. We talked to her. She said that you were doing this. We're here to help. Just every single time somebody shows up, he's just like, ha, 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 this fucking woman, my man. Just not Neve Almira,
If I didn't love her, I'd kill her.
right?
Yeah.
Just I imagine like every single time somebody shows up, he's like, talk to Nynaeve, didn't you? This bitch.
I think at some point he just stops even questioning it. Like more people just show up and he's just like, all right.
No, it's true. Anyway, sorry. Galad,
Yeah.
no longer being a
Yeah.
shitbag.
Yeah. Well, he's starting his journey to being no longer a shitbag.
Well, to be
And he
fair,
confronts-
okay. One of the things that I've actually really loved about Galad, even up to this point, is that Galad isn't a shitbag. Like he's a douche in some ways because he is that like way too far into the realm of lawful good, if you will, where he will do things at his own expense and the expense of people he loves and whatnot to do the right thing, or what he perceives as the right thing. And I'm putting both of those in quotes just in case you couldn't hear it in my voice. But in my opinion, I've actually always loved Galad as a character because he is incredibly consistent with that just for starters, being consistent to your character is one of the things that I look for in a book. If you have a character who is incredibly consistent and they just make decisions always along their principles, great. That's the way that I role play characters. That's the way that I would like to read characters, all of that different stuff. And so Galad is a little bit of a douche just because sometimes his idea of what's right and what the reader's idea of what's right are not in line. But at the same time, I actually really think that Galad does the best that he can up until this point. His interests are just usually a little askew of what we think they should be for the characters that we're following. But still, that ends up putting him at odds with a lot of the characters that we like, and we're like, fuck, Galad, Jesus, just stop. Stop it. Stop. And this is finally the time where his morality and his idea of what's right and wrong actually aligns for the first time fully with the characters that we are rooting for.
Yeah. So he confronts Eamon Valda, who was leading the White Cloaks, the White Cloaks, for the alleged murder of his stepmother, Queen Morgaze. And they wound up going. He challenges them to a trial under the light.
Yep.
And they duel in the Dome of the Light, I believe.
Correct.
And Galad kills Valda and becomes the leader of the White Cloak. And the first thing he does is pledge all the White Cloaks that are following him, because there is a bit of a severance,
There is, yes.
but pledges everybody that will follow him to fighting and defeating the Dark One at Tarmageddon, regardless of who they have to fight alongside.
Correct.
So he's going to put aside their disdain for Perrin, put aside their disdain for whoever they don't like, and say, we're going to focus on the real goal.
For Aes Sedai, even. He even specifically says Aes Sedai, and that's actually not totally what creates the rift, but there's actually a number of White Cloaks who at that point are like, dude, we can't follow you. You're fucking kidding me? The only thing in the world that we hate the most is Aes Sedai, and if you're suggesting that even if we have to fight along Aes Sedai, we will do this, we can't do that. Bro, you're crazy.
So that's Gallad. Elaine, as she's been trying to do for the last couple books, finally becomes the Queen of Andor. She has to overcome being kidnapped by the Black Aja, who she roots out entirely from Camelin.
Which, again, is so funny, because if they had just shut the fuck up and left her alone, they would have been in so much of a better position once she became queen. Because, again, it's partially, again, let me just throw out there, Robert Jordan writes an incredible book, and so again, it totally makes sense that they do this, and it totally works as far as the story and whatnot. But if they had just calmed down a little, they would have been fine, because it's partially them kidnapping her that actually allows her to root them out. And if they had just left her alone, they could have been so much more successful once she was queen than doing it before she becomes queen and sort of inadvertently allowing her to become queen and to eliminate them from Camelin. Seriously, come on, guys.
The internal strife, the internal politicking, and even raids from other contenders to the throne. So she survived assassination attempts by channelers, by, namely the Black Aja.
Yes.
And just your regular average everyday assassins, people politicking and maneuvering against her in the Game of Houses, and finally takes over the throne that she doesn't know it, and no one else knows it for the most part, but that Queen Morghese, her mother, yielded to her several books ago.
Yes,
so
indeed.
Bam, yet another kind of mini arc closed. So the mini Fael arc has been closed. The Gallad rising to power in the White Cloaks arc has been closed. Elaine becoming Queen of Andor mini arc has been closed. Land going to the Borderlands to fight the Shadow mini arc it's almost closed. He's at least made it there, roughly. I mean, he is in the Borderlands, no doubt about that. But and so now we have Mazrim Taim, who meets with of all group of people, meets with a group of Red Aja sisters from the White Tower and agrees to their offer that since there were sisters taken and bonded against their will by certain Ashaman, the same number of Black Tower initiates should be bonded by sisters. They say it's only fair. And the sisters are fucking surprised that Taim is like, okay, yeah. And then he gives this super, super cryptic line. Let the Lord of Chaos rule. Which is a phrase that was uttered from the Dark One to the Forsaken as an instruction.
Yep. Which, of course, again, this is a moment where really one of the most wonderful things in books happens, which is that okay, so all of the Forsaken have been given that as an instruction to not kill Rand, to barely even impede him on his in his tasks and what he thinks is important and all of the things that he's doing to forward his own agendas against the Dark One. And of course, all of the Forsaken are sitting there being like, dude, what the fuck? Why would we let this country bumpkin from the Two Rivers, who's actually turning into an incredibly worthy opponent here, just do what he wants? And quite a number of them don't. They absolutely are like, nah, fuck this. We're going to do our own thing. We'll figure out what we need to do. The Dark One's just being an idiot. But this is a moment where you actually are like, wait, is Mazrim Taim a Forsaken?
Or it,
And
or at least
or
a
what?
dark friend.
Yeah, no, and this is the moment where you really start to think that there is a strong possibility that part of the reason that Mazrim Taim just hates Rand so much, and that, you know, a number of these things are true, is that we still haven't really seen who a couple of the Forsaken are, sort of as their like real world mask. Because of course none of them go by their actual name. Samael doesn't rule Ilion as Samael the Forsaken. You know, when Ravin is in Camelin, he doesn't rule Camelin as Ravin the Forsaken. They'll take on names and whatnot. And this is a moment where ages ago, if you remember correctly, like, I don't know, maybe even like 15, 20 episodes or something, we talked about the fact that Mazrim Taim uh, was felt very much like he was being set up to be Demodred. And this is one of those moments where you're sitting there being like, holy shit, is Mazrim Taim Demodred? Or like one of the other couple of Forsaken that we haven't really seen as their like sort of real world equivalents. It's nuts. And I loved this passage because it just gave so much more credence to the fact that like you really fucking never know in these stories just who the Forsaken are and what they're doing. Or again, just an incredibly powerful dark friend, because anyone could be. Anyone in the story could be. The only people who you kind of are like 100% sure aren't are Egwene, Nynaeve, Rand, Perrin, and Matt. Those are like the only ones who you're like 100% sure. And then you're like 99% sure on a number of others. But anybody else could be a dark friend at any point in the story, and I fucking love it.
But that, ladies and gentlemen, is Knife of Dream. So,
Indeed.
to you, the listener, what are some of the things that stuck out the most to you from Knife of Dreams? What are some of those kind of aha moments? What were some of those most relieving moments? You know, we had several mini arcs that were closed out in this book. A lot of action picking up, a lot of ramping up, to the point where if you don't come out at the end of Knife of Dreams feeling like the last battle is like right there, I say read it again. Because for me, when you come out of it,
Right?
you see all this going on, you see all this happening, you see Randon getting in what seems to be a continuously worsening state. It's like, okay, how
Yes.
much worse can things get for this guy before he just kills over? Like, but he has to fight the last battle first. So just tell us, what was your favorite part about Knife of Dreams? What was your least favorite part? Um, was there anything that we didn't talk about that stuck out to you as important? Anything like that? We encourage you guys and gals and assorted other genders, because I don't want to genderfy anybody. Um, Definitely, Discord is a fantastic place to do this because it's live
Agreed.
responses for the most part. I mean, it might be a little while after, but people are going to see it and respond to it, and it'll be right there. There's so many fans that hop in there and talk about it and talk about their opinions and what they liked and what they didn't like, as well as talking about the podcast here and what they like to see us do and make suggestions. And sometimes we drop a couple teasers and stuff in there as well. Um, there's also
Correct.
still the email, blacktowerpod@gmail.com, if you'd rather just make it to where, and if you just want us to read it and maybe comment on it, but not say who it came from, just let us know. And we'd be more than happy to do that, whether it's in an email, a Twitter message, whatever have you. We're more than happy to keep you anonymous if that's what you prefer. Um, of course, you can tweet at us and message us on Twitter @Tower Podcast. Um, and for links to any of this and to be able to see our actual email under the contacts tab, you can go to blacktowerpod.podbean.com. to find all of that, as well as all the episodes we've ever released. You can follow us on there. You can comment on the post there. You can like them there. I believe there's even a share function. Um, all of that fantastic, good
Correct.
stuff. And feel free if you're listening to us on like Apple Podcast or another podcasting platform, whatever you use. Um, I can't say that we are guaranteed to see it or be able to react to it unless you like send us a message saying like, "Hey, I commented here" or something like that. But if you want to leave like a review, or comments there, YouTube as well, uh, we definitely greatly appreciate it, and we do read and respond to as many as we can see. Sometimes it does go so fast that we do miss a few. Um, we are only human.
Correct. But mostly we are
Oh yeah,
pretty darn good
we're
about
pretty
it.
good about it. So we want to hear what you guys and gals and etc. have to say. We do want to hear from the listeners, be it things about the episode we've done, ideas for episodes, things you'd like to hear us talk about. Excuse me. As well as, if you have any ideas on how you think the podcast could be better, or even just kudos on what we're doing good, feel free to call us out on what we're doing bad, as usual. But I think that pretty much covers it.
Indeed. Yeah, and just real quick, I want to throw in there, we did not necessarily mention so much on this episode that this is actually one of the reasons that I think that a lot of arcs got closed up is because this is actually the last book that Robert Jordan wrote himself. The next book was actually put out by Brandon Sanderson with Robert Jordan's notes. So if you have anything to say about that, or you want to talk about the difference between now and the next book review, which should be dropping in about a month, definitely say anything that you want about that as well. We'd love to hear that. We'll definitely probably talk about the difference a little bit more on the next one. Again, given that the next one is the first one that Brandon Sanderson was sort of in charge of. But yeah, all of that, we'd love to hear from you guys. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say. So if you have anything to say to us, good, bad, or ugly,
Yeah.
we'd love to hear it.
So, but with the 11th book review done, 4 more to do, 4 more still to come, including, the prequel, including New Spring. We look forward to doing the next 4 as well as all the other episodes we're going to do, and seeing what you all have to say about it and the impressions you get, the things that we missed that maybe we didn't think about, or maybe we said something that you didn't think about with a book or forgot about, whatever the case. But for those of us
Indeed.
here at the Black Tower Podcast, I have been Andrew.
And I have
we
been
will
Daniel.
see you guys next week with a still topical episode, but on a topic we have not done an episode entirely on before. And I think you guys are going to like it. So,
Agreed.
But stay cool, stay active. We'll see you guys all on Twitter in the meantime, and we will put out another episode in a week, and we will see you then. And I just like brain farted. I was
Take
like,
care,
what
everybody.
else do I say? All right.
I think that's it. I think you've
Oh, that's
covered
amazing.
everything.
Normally I forget
Andrew.
something. But we will see you guys next week. Take care, and enjoy yourselves. Live a little.
You've been waiting for this moment, for this feeling to grow. In the shadows, always watching, always running the show. In the tower, you can bring your pain. In the tower, you can feel the strain. You've been having so much trouble just fitting in. In the tower, of fear.